Hello, everybody. Howdy. Yes, howdy. You're right. Howdy, everybody. Welcome to Late Night Book Chat. I am one of your hosts, Patricia Meredith, and this is my husband, Andrew.
I'm Andrew Meredith.
Andrew, are you going to do that accent
Yep.
the whole
All
night? All right. We're going to go true Western tonight, because tonight we have an amazing author of Western fairy tales retold, Rachel Kovaciny. So welcome.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us, Rachel.
Thanks for having me.
Especially because it is so much later where you are.
It's 11 o'clock here, which happily, ever since my kids finished school last month, I have been a little lax on when I put them to bed and then when I go to bed. So excellent. I'm, working my way up to this.
Awesome. Good. Well, thank you for joining us. I promise we'll have you out of here by midnight your time.
Yep. Won't want you to turn into a pumpkin.
Right. Yes, exactly.
That would be sad. Yes.
So, so let's see. Welcome everybody who's joining us live. Be sure to leave your questions in the comments. Be sure to put an asterisk, a little star, before any specific questions that you have for Rachel, because we, unlike normal or other live streams that people will do, we like to save those for the end, so that way we can really focus on my huge list of questions that I have for Rachel. I get to talk to her first. We get to talk to her first, and then you guys can ask your questions at the end. Yep. So, yeah. So
first how about you first tell us all about yourself?
Yes.
Everything.
Well, shall I begin like David Copperfield with I Am Born?
Right.
I'm a native Midwesterner. I was born in Iowa, which my parents were also born in Iowa. Many of my grandparents also. My grandparents, my great-great-grandparents were immigrants here from Germany and Holland in the 1870s and 80s. So you'll see those kind of themes pop up in my books too, because that's my heritage. Yeah. My dad is a pastor, so we moved a lot when I was a kid. We moved, well, not a lot, but moved to Michigan when I was 3, moved to North Carolina when I was 12. Then I went to college in Minnesota and met my husband there. We got married. We lived in Wisconsin for 4 years. We lived in Connecticut for 3 years, and then we moved to Virginia. So
nice. Awesome. So never out west.
No. I have never lived farther west than very, very western Iowa. I was born almost on the border to Nebraska. But
okay.
We have another Midwesterner in the chat too.
Yes. Oh, do we? Yes. Oh, yes. Miss Tori is, yes. It's also from Minnesota.
Yes. You got to say it Minnesota. You got to say North Carolina.
That's right.
Yes.
There you go.
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Wisconsin.
Yeah. Colorado. Yep. Right out here, we're in Colorado.
But don't say Washington.
That's true. Yes.
Where I'm from.
Even though people who lived in Washington.
Were born and bred there who say Washington.
Exactly.
It's embarrassing.
They're allowed to, right?
That's right, because they're born and bred there, so they're allowed to do that. All right, so we always start our evening off with our random questions. So these are just 5 totally random questions to break the ice a little bit, Rachel, and just kind of throw you under the bus with some random things. So, are you ready?
No, but go ahead.
No, here we go. If you could only keep 3 of your books, which ones would you choose and why? I don't think they have to be ones that you've written.
Of my books. Do they also have to be published? Or do they have to be books that I've written? Or just random books?
However you would like to answer the question.
Okay. Well,
they could be your books or other people's. Yeah.
I own about 3,000 books, so let's just narrow it down to my books that I've written.
Okay. Great.
I would keep a book that's not out yet, but I would keep Murder Most Foul, which is my Hamlet retelling. It was set in like a noir 1940s kind of setting, which maybe next year, maybe 2026, I'll get that out into the world eventually. But it's a very different, more adult flavor than my Westerns. So people drink alcohol in it. It's very, very edgy stuff. Oh dear.
Heavens.
Yeah. I would keep that one because I love that one dearly. And I also could love, I love all of them. Keep specific characters better than specific.
Yeah.
I would keep My Rock and My Refuge because that was a really long and hard write. Right. That's the big thick one. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the one that, I won an award for that one. And
really awesome.
Yes. I won the Pencraft Awards for Christian historical fiction. I got second place on that one. And then I was a finalist for the Willa Awards with it too for young adult historical fiction, which that one's the bigger deal because that's from Women Write the West, which is like the big group of writers.
Great.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yes.
Congratulations. Well, I can't wait to read it.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the Hamlet one because I love Hamlet.
I know. Yes. Oh, absolutely. And then hold on, you still get a third one. So
I get a third one. I'll keep Dancing in Donuts because that's my favorite.
that's the first one I ever read. I love it. I love it so much. So excellent. All right. Well, let's read
All
this
right.
one.
Next question. What's the last book you finished and what did you think of it?
The last book I finished was Break the Beast by Alison Tebow, which is an indie book and a retelling. It's a retelling of Beowulf. And yes, and just blew me away. I've read her books before. Most of her 4 previous books that I've read are cute, fun, kind of snarky humor, like fairy tale retellings. This is like Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis, but blend it with like the stalwart heroes from Lord of the Rings and add in like the amazing wordsmithing of like Caraval, or I mean, it's so good.
Cool.
Just
Wow.
absolutely floored me. I had to read it in little, like a couple pages at a time because I just had to digest it and savor it. It was so good.
Wow.
Yeah. And
What
it
was the title
is
again?
up for,
Yeah.
pardon?
What was the title again?
Break the Beast
Okay.
by Alison Tebow, which is Tebo. It's up for the Reader's Choice Award for Realm Makers right now.
Okay.
And I'm
Yeah.
really, really rooting for it because it is fantastic. It's going to be in my top 2 or 3 books for the year, I'm quite sure, because it's just amazing.
There we go.
Okay.
Can you hear us now?
I can't.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, the mic unhooked itself from the
Touchy. All right.
from the thing. Awesome. That sounds amazing. That's definitely going
Yeah.
on my TBR. That sounds amazing.
That sounds awesome.
I haven't read Beowulf since college. Have you read it recently?
So, because I wanted to read this, I was like, I read parts of Beowulf in college, and I read a retelling, or not a retelling, but a modernization of it. But that was 20 some years ago. So I just recently picked up Rosemary Sutcliffe's version, which is Beowulf Dragon Slayer. It's for like maybe 4th grade, and really fast, fun read. And I blew through that one afternoon and just kind of refreshed my memory of what actually happens in the story.
Yeah.
'Cause I kind of remember. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That sounds like an amazing idea.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. What's a book that took you forever to finish? So a really long book, or a really short one that was just really hard to get through.
Well, I mean, like I've read War and Peace. That took me all summer.
Oh gosh,
A
yeah.
couple of years ago. That took a long time. I've read Les Miserables twice, and the first time I read it, I loved it. I was in my 20s. It just, it was so good. I read it again last year in my 40s and was like, why? Why
Really?
is this? Why? The story in this is so good, but it is encased in so much blubber that trying to get to the story parts was sometimes painful.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was like, well, I've read that twice. I think that's enough now.
Now I'm good.
I've done my duty.
Musical.
But that one again took me like all summer to just reading a chapter here, a chapter there, because it was a lot.
Yeah. Which generally you get through books pretty quickly. I've seen your posts where
I
average like
1.5 to 2 books a week usually. So
yeah, that's a lot. That's what I consider a lot.
Yes.
So yes. So, you got one?
What is an underrated book you think everyone should read?
The Blue Castle by Lucy Maud Montgomery.
Ooh, yeah.
Yes. Just
right. So Anna Green,
especially if you're in your late 20s, you shouldn't read it when you're quite young, because you're not going to appreciate the character arc, and you're not going to appreciate the characters. Like, you have to have had some disappointments in life, I think, to really, really love and appreciate the transformation that goes on in that book.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, that's one I've never read. I read all of the Anne books, of course, as one does. But
Right, as one does. Yes. It is one of her adult novels. It is not
Okay.
written with like kids in mind. It is
Right.
The protagonist is 29 and miserable for
Okay.
the first 5 or 6 chapters at least, and then has a shocking discovery and turns her whole life around because of that.
Interesting.
So it's
Awesome.
good stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a romance, and there's
Of course.
beautiful Canadian, scenery because it's
Sure.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. And those are all like turn of the century, aren't they? I think Anne is.
So this one is, Anne is. I mean, Anne
Yeah.
was the first Anne book was published in like 1907. This is
Right.
this is in the 20s. There's
Okay.
motor cars, there's
Oh,
cinemas,
okay.
there's hot dogs. Yeah.
Yeah. Hot dogs. I love that. That's a
That's how you know.
1920s.
Paints it right there, right?
That's right. Awesome. All right. Was that all of our random ones?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Excellent. So now we're going to dive into the nitty gritty and ask Rachel some very personal questions about her own books.
Oh, well, as long as it's about the
So
book.
not too personal, but so first, kind of an introduction to your main series, right? Once Upon a Western. Can you tell us? Like I've got 4 of them. I believe
Yes.
you just released a 5th one.
Yes.
Technically a prequel, kind
Which
of.
is, okay, not exactly a prequel. Technically, it was just written first. There are 5.
Okay, there you go.
And a friend of mine recently was like, weren't your books getting longer? What happened to that? Why is that one so long? Well, that one was written first. So really they are still.
Okay.
They're getting longer. But so Man on the Buckskin Horse, I wrote it in 2015 for a contest, a fairy tale retelling contest. It's the first time I ever retold a fairy tale. Not the first Western I ever wrote, but the first fairy tale retelling. And I just thought this contest is for an anthology of Sleeping Beauty retellings.
Okay.
And I had somebody that I kind of knew in the blogosphere at the time had won a previous retelling from the same publisher. And I was like, if she could win that, I bet I could win the next one.
Yeah.
And when I found out they were doing Sleeping Beauty, I said, well, forget it, because I hate Sleeping Beauty. The parents in Sleeping Beauty are the stupidest parents in fairy tales. I mean, who says to themselves, oh, there's this really powerful, magician, fairy, whatever, who's very touchy and sensitive. Let's really annoy her.
Yeah.
Let's not invite her to the christening. And when she does show up anyway, uninvited, let's not give her, the special treatment we're giving. But what you did?
Right. What do you think's gonna happen?
How did you think that was going to go? And then also, what kind of a spiteful, ridiculous fairy is like, oh, I'm so mad I didn't get invited to your party. I'm going to kill your child, curse your child. It's also
Right.
dramatic much. So I was like, I don't like that story. But I had recently been to Colonial Williamsburg and seen a spinning wheel demonstration of not just the little sit-down kind of spinning wheels, but the great wheels, which are about 5 feet tall. You stand up while you're working them. You run the wheel with one hand. You feed stuff into the spindle with the other, and it has a spindle that's like 6 inches long at least.
Ooh, okay.
Massive. It's like a knitting needle, but sharp.
Wow.
And the person demonstrating it said, she made a little joke about how she's like, I've always thought Sleeping Beauty really didn't prick her finger on that. She backed up against it by accident and had a terrible wound in an unmentionable place. And so her parents told everyone she fell asleep for 100 years because she was recovering from this.
Oh my God.
And I thought, how fun would it be to retell Sleeping Beauty that way?
Yes.
And so when this fairy tale retelling thing came up, I was like, oh, well, I could do something with that and have it's not a magical accident with the spinning wheel, but it's still an accident. I did not end up having her actually have an unmentionable area. It's actually it is her hand.
Missed opportunity.
I could do it without magic that way. That it's a
Yeah.
wicked, huge weapon-like spindle.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just kind of how it happened. I won the contest with that. It was published, and then they had non-exclusive, or they had exclusive publishing rights for 5 years.
Okay.
And so then after 5 years, the non-exclusive rights reverted to me, and I was able to start working on putting out my own
And now,
version of it.
okay.
But because it's so
Okay.
short, it's only 21,000 words. I was like,
Okay.
you know, is it worth putting it out in paperback? I debated it for a long time. And then somebody on my street team said, what if you put out like an illustrated version? And I said, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll do that. Let's put illustrations in it. Let's have it be cool. And I just happen to have a friend who does illustrations that are just marvelous
Perfect.
stuff.
Yes.
So that's how it all kind of came about. So it's the first, but it's also the fifth.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
But really, they can be read in any order.
They can be read in any order.
Right.
I'm not writing them in chronological order.
Right.
So, you know, each book tells you at the beginning of it what year and where it takes place,
Right.
so that you can kind of be like, oh, because Cloaked was the first one I wrote.
Okay.
And it's way, way later than any of the others. It's 1883. Okay. And then Dancing in Donuts is 1866. There's a big gap.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So then there's Cloaked, which is Red Riding Hood.
Cloaked is Red Riding Hood.
Yeah.
Dancing in Donuts.
Wyoming.
Yes, which is Wyoming, and it's 1883. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and I love the cover for that one.
Yeah.
So evocative, and
It is. It's very Great Gatsby.
Exactly. So
yeah.
my cover artist is my sister-in-law.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
Good fun.
Which is awesome, because then we can have like a really good interaction as she designs the cover. She'll be like, oh, I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about that. And she had just read The Great Gatsby shortly before I wrote Cloaked, and she's like, you know, the wolf character is always watching her. He's always he's just watching her all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What if I brought in like that Great Gatsby iconic, the big eyes on the billboard? What if I put that in the cover? And and
I love it. Well, and then he pointed out to me the Stetson shape.
Yes, his hat
in the back. I
Yeah.
hadn't even got that.
Yep.
That one is so subtle that a lot of people will be like, yeah, I've been staring at this cover for years. And my 4-year-old walks over and like, I like his hat. And they're like,
right. It's brilliant. I love all the covers. They're all just so what's the word you used? Americana.
Yeah.
Very that classic Americana feel. So you immediately just get the era and everything. So but then the first one I read was Dancing in Donuts, and I love that one.
That one is still my favorite, because it was so easy to write. That one just poured forth onto the page without a lot of like effort, and there was some plotting because it is a mystery, and mysteries you have to plot. You have to know what the bad guy is doing and why ahead of time in order for it to make sense. Otherwise, you're gonna have to rewrite the whole thing. And,
Yeah. So are you not normally a plotter? Was that the?
I am a plantser.
Okay.
I need to know how does it begin and how does it end, and I want to have like my whole ending scene in mind before I start to write. I need to know like the basics of the tree, the trunk, and where the main branches are. But then as I write, that's where there needs to be like some discovery for me, because if I know everything ahead of time, I tried plotting a whole book out once, and I wrote a chapter and a half and said, I don't care anymore. I know how everything goes.
Yeah.
It's no fun. So I'm in between.
Okay. So do you ever discover characters along the way, or are they part of the branches?
Sometimes, like more minor characters will sometimes pop up.
Okay.
Or characters will kind of surprise me with things that I didn't realize about them, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I get into them and like, oh, really? That was you. You were okay, huh?
Yeah. Well, I loved like from the very beginning, and so because I just read Cloaked, that one's freshest in my mind. But you so deftly include each of the main characters of the storyline, right? The grandma and Red Riding Hood, and then the woodsman. Yes. And that one I almost didn't catch until he like mentioned again what he did, and I was like, oh, I know who he is.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and he Hauer is the German word for woodcutter. And so if you know in Deutsch, you know that is what he does, but he does mention it a couple of times. Yeah.
Well, and in that one, I definitely, she's from Peoria, so there's your Iowa, right? And then,
Peoria, Illinois, it's like that Midwestern. And I kind of picked Peoria because I had just been reading about Oscar Wilde touring the United States in like the early 1880s, and then
Mm.
he did a lecture in Peoria, Illinois, like the summer before this takes place. And I was like, oh, that's too fun. I gotta
Yeah.
pick
Yeah. Oh, that's perfect. Yeah. Yeah. And then my favorite scene in the whole book was when she discovered the bookshelves. And I love how you were like, she's like, I've never seen so many books in one place. There's 6 whole shelves of books in one little cabinet. And she's so impressed.
Yes.
And I love that because I'd never really thought about it. But then when she reaches for Austen, her grandma has copies of all the Austen books. I don't know why, but it had never occurred to me, or I'd never really thought about like people out west in the Wild West reading Austen. You associate that with like maybe in Illinois, she would have, she's heard of it and everything.
Right.
Of course, her mom doesn't approve and all of that, but it had never occurred to me, then she's talking to her grandma about reading them. And it was just, just one of those, how sometimes there'll be thoughts that you're just like,
oh, yeah.
You don't realize,
right.
you don't put 2 and 2 together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I have a copy of Jane Eyre, which is my favorite book. And it is one of the like 3rd American printings or something. It's from the 1850s. And you're like, wait a minute, this book was in America before the Civil War. Like,
wow.
Like those connections can be just a little mind blowing, right?
Yeah.
Like, wait, oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just funny to think about, Yeah.
Plus has a little Northanger Abbey worked into it too. So having her read some Austen in there was a little
I can see that.
But
yes. Yeah. And we'll come back to Jane Eyre here in a minute. But first, so Dancing
and Donuts
is
a retelling of
12 Dancing Princesses.
Yes.
Which that was actually the first idea I ever had for how could you combine fairy tales with Westerns. Several years before I wrote Man on the Buckskin Horse, I was like, well, I'm really loving writing Westerns. I had come back to them after a decade and a half of not writing them. And I was like, fairy tale retellings are really big right now.
Mm-hmm.
And fairy tale, they have a lot of myth-based storytelling to them, and Westerns have a lot of myth-based story.
Mm-hmm.
Could you combine those? And I was like,
yeah,
you could really easily put 12 Dancing Princesses as a Western because there's not a lot of magic to it, right?
Right.
Like magical forest, sure. But most of it is just sleight of hand, trickery, a little sleeping potion here, a little, And I'm like, and the hero of it is a soldier returning home from the war. And what do you have? Hundreds of thousands of people in the West. You have Civil War veterans.
Absolutely.
They have, maybe PTSD, maybe just we're tired of life right now in settled places. We go West.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
How perfect would that, that would mesh? So I actually had this idea that I was going to have a like Western mystery series where there's this detective who's a Civil War veteran, and he goes and he solves these fairy tale mysteries.
Oh,
interesting.
Yeah.
But that got shelved. I never really did anything with it. So then when I decided to do a series, I was like, wait, I could still tell that story though. That would be really, really fun. So.
Right. Yeah. I can't think of any other time I've ever seen Westerns and fairy tales mix. So
there's one other person I know of who does them.
Rare. Okay. Yeah.
Elizabeth Grace Foley has written 2. She's got Chorale Nocturne, which is a Cinderella out west, and then she has it's a Little Red Riding Hood, Mountain of the Wolf.
Okay.
Yeah, but those are both really, really short novellas, like 15,000 words, very, very small.
Okay.
Yeah. Whereas yours are definitely full. How long is Cloaked though?
Cloaked is 40,000 words maybe, and then I think Donuts is 45. So Cloaked is about the same length actually as The Great Gatsby.
So yes, exactly.
Yeah. Fahrenheit 451. Like there's a lot of shorter, good novella length novels. And then by the time you get to One Bad Apple, that's about 50,000. So they are getting longer.
It's a little bit longer, yeah.
Yep.
And then of course, so which one's that one?
I don't know which one is that one.
I know.
That's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Only I don't have dwarfs. I have 7 orphaned kids.
Okay.
Yes, and the 7 orphaned kids are white, and they're abandoned by the wagon train that their family was going west with. So some of them were already orphans, and they were taken in by their aunt and uncle, who are then going west with them and their cousins to start new lives in Kansas with an uncle who already lives there. And then the aunt and uncle get sick and die. And that's where the book begins, is they're burying their aunt and uncle, and their wagon train has left them because they had a fever and nobody wanted to catch it. And they're 7 kids. The oldest is 16, the narrator's 14. They go down to like 6 or 5. And then this wagon train of Black pioneers pulls up and says, "You look like you need some help."
Yeah.
And so instead of having dwarves, which have a kind of an otherness about them, I have white orphans with a Black wagon train.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's
and that one is born of me teaching my kids Western history and going, I'm reading this book about Black pioneers and going, I don't know much about Black pioneers. You're telling me there were wagon trains full of Black pioneers going out to like Kansas and Nebraska, and I've never learned about them. So I started to learn about them. And I need to write a book involving this, because
absolutely,
if I don't know about them and I study Western history,
right,
as a kid, this needs to be talked about.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, I can't wait to read that one next.
Yeah.
That one has
I have to read them all at once, Rachel. What are you doing to me?
That one has aspects of Hamlet in it, because if you think about Hamlet, it has a lot of similarities to Snow White. You've got the royal parents, and then one of them dies mysteriously, and then there's a power grab, and it's a step parent who's doing this power grab, and you've got the kid with no real resources trying to make things right. And
and then a play within a play, and
a play within a play. Yes, good stuff. So it's a gender flipped Hamlet, because it is a princess, or a girl who's the Snow White character. And I also really loved playing with beauty stereotypes, because my Snow White is Black, so she doesn't have the skin as white as snow.
Yes,
but she's the most beautiful person that the 14-year-old narrator has ever seen, until he meets her stepmother, and then he's like, no, wait, that's the most beautiful. But is she actually beautiful, or does she just convince people she is?
Right. Where do you find true beauty?
Yeah.
Speaking of which, what's the 4th one?
The 4th one is Beauty and the Beast. It's my refuge.
Wonderful.
It's a chonker. It's 100 and something thousand words. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah. So why am I rocking my refuge? Why that title?
Well, this is my most deeply Christian of all of the novels. Like they're all Christian fiction.
Yeah.
Because they're about people who are Christians, written by a Christian author. But that one has the most themes of forgiveness, redemption, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Right. And the main character reads the Bible a lot, quotes it, and my rock and my refuge is from the Psalms.
Yes.
Right. So, and I wanted something with alliteration, like Beauty and the Beast, and it had Anne in there, so my rock and my refuge, and
perfect.
And it works for the characters. Like you could say that she is the Beast character's refuge, and he is her rock, her solid place.
Yeah. I love that.
Interesting.
In fact, on Instagram, you've been sharing a lot of the stories behind the meanings of their names.
Yes.
Each of the names in the books. And I've been loving following that. Is there a particular character that's your favorite, or the favorite, I love that this person's name means this?
Well, the Beast character in that one, his name is Arthur Wendell. And Arthur and Wendell are both, one of them was, I think, it might be Gaelic, I can't remember. But anyway, they're both British Isles words for bear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So his name is Bear, but
perfect. That's awesome. Yeah. And what is Beauty's name in that one?
Her name is Marta Beckman, and Beckman means baker, and her family she comes from a family of bakers in Germany. And Marta is because of Martha in the Bible, who is always doing, always serving, always finding what needs to be done next. And that's very much Marta Beckman. But also Marta was my favorite always of the kids in Sound of Music. So
That's what I immediately think of with the
Right.
name.
So I really loved Marta.
Yes.
7 on Tuesday. And so
Yeah.
I grabbed that name for those two reasons.
Wonderful. So do you have a little bit of German heritage in all of them?
Not all of them exactly. They all do kind of tie up in the background.
Yeah.
Obviously, the greatest German heritage would be Martha Beckmann and My Rock and My Refuge and her brother Jakob. And then Hauer in Quote, and they are actually related.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
They are. When you read My Rock and My Refuge, you'll find her referencing like her mom they're cousins. Her mom's older brother went to America long ago and stayed, and that's Hauer's dad.
That's my gosh, that's cool. So and you have several crossovers like that, right?
There are crossovers. So characters from one book will pop up in another one or get mentioned. She's not explicitly mentioned, but the midwife from the main character from Anne on the Buckskin Horse, she's first cousins also with a more minor character in My Rock and My Refuge.
Okay.
And one of the sisters from Dancing in Donuts, Dora, she goes back east eventually and marries a law student, and then they eventually settle in Peoria, Illinois, and she is Mary Rose's mom.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that.
That is not actually stated anywhere yet, but it will be.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Are you ever gonna make a family tree about all of those?
Eventually, probably, because the Algona family in particular, because with all the girls, they kind of show up a lot of places.
And have your artist do a cross stitch family tree.
Yes. Bless this home.
Yeah. That'd be great. Awesome. Did you have any?
So are you working on any other stories in the series?
Yeah.
Well,
or thinking about them still?
In August, I'm releasing a companion collection of short stories called Prairie Tales.
Okay.
Instead of fairy tales. And they are there are 10 stories in it, two that go along with each of the books.
Okay.
Perfect.
So most of them are like sequels. A few of them are out in the world already. There's 2 that you can get on Amazon.
Okay.
Just as free little short stories. Those ones are one follows Cloaked and one follows what's the other one? One Bad Apple.
Okay.
And then some of them have been previously, I released them for a little while and then took them down. A couple of them my newsletter subscribers have gotten for Christmas, kind of things like that.
Okay.
But 3 of them are completely brand new.
Nice. Some good reader magnets.
Yes. So a couple of reader magnets, but some completely new stuff in it too.
Awesome.
And it's a lot of fun. And then that's where you're going to start seeing like, oh, this person is related to that person. And this person was, this guy was in the war and was friends with this guy who was in the war. And
Exactly. So normally I save questions to the end, but I was actually about to ask this question. So I'll go ahead and share it.
Okay.
So Jessica's wondering, like I am, are any of these on audiobook yet?
Not yet.
Not yet, but
Not yet. They are being recorded as we speak.
Yes.
So they will be getting released eventually. I don't have a timeline yet for like when they're releasing them. I do know Dancing in Donuts is done because the knit guy who's reading it is actually someone I went to college with.
Oh, wonderful.
And I've always thought that he would be really, really good to read that one. And so when I started talking to One Audiobook, so that when they said they wanted to pick up my series and do audiobooks, I said, can I request narrators? Do I get any say in the narrators before I sign this contract? I want to know. They're like, well, you can, you get to pick from who we have. And I said, well, can I request any though? Because I know a guy, Steve Corona. He's an amazing actor, and he's going to nail the humor of that book. He's going to just knock that out of the park.
That's so important.
Do it. They're like, well, we'll look into him and we'll see. And then they came back and they're like, he sounds amazing. He teaches like courses on how to do audiobooks.
Awesome.
So he's very into this. So he ended up, he has recorded Dancing in Donuts. He did that about a month ago, I think. And he's also, I think, going to do One Bad Apple.
Okay.
They're going to have him do both of those because those are both male narrators. And then they have a couple different female narrators for the others. But
Excellent.
Cool.
Excellent. So are you going to do all 5 of them or not Buckskin Horse?
All 5.
All 5.
Buckskin Horse
Okay.
and all the short stories.
Cool.
Oh,
that are going to
excellent.
be fairy tales. And my favorite thing is like the stories that go along with Dancing and Donuts. Steve is reading those, and the stories that go along with Cloaked, like the person who's reading Cloaked is reading those, and so they're going to match
Nice.
Good.
in the short story collection, which is
Yeah.
neat. I don't know how they're going to work that with like royalties for the voice actors, but
Right. But they can figure that out.
Great.
Yeah.
You know, that's not my headache.
Nope.
That's right. Oh, I'm so glad. I get through books so much faster when they're audiobooks, but it definitely has to be read by the right voice, by the right narrator,
Yes.
right? 'Cause I've closed books where I'm like, okay, you know what? I would probably love this book if I was reading it myself, but this narrator is driving me nuts.
Yes. I don't listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I tend to only listen to audiobooks of books I have read before because I read very fast.
Yep.
Yeah.
I am a really fast reader, and if I'm going to hear at the speed that I would be reading with my eyes, I have to speed it up to like 2.5, 3 times, and then it sounds like chipmunks. It's
Right.
like stupid, and so I'm like, this is not an experience, not how I want to experience books for the first time. But if it's a book I already know and I love, if I find a really great narrator of it, I'll want to listen to it because that's a different kind of reading experience.
Mhm.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Which, okay, so speaking of reader experiences, one of your new releases in the last, I guess it's been maybe 3 or 4 months, your Jane Eyre reader companion. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
That was a gift dropped from heaven.
Yeah.
Because I had never really heard of one audiobooks before, and
Yeah.
I got an email in my author email inbox going, our acquisitions editor enjoys your writing and thinks that you would be really good at contributing to this new series we're doing of Christian reader guides to classics to help homeschoolers, families that want to explore classics more, or just individual readers, or small classrooms. We're working on this, and I thought it was spam.
Yeah.
Because I'd never heard of them. And
Right.
you get stuff every once in a while.
Oh,
We'd
yeah.
like to promote your book. We'd like you to write a book. Right.
All
It's
the time.
spam. It's always spam. And so I was going to delete it. But
Yeah.
then my friend Carrie Brownell, who
Yep.
lives in Idaho,
Mhm.
she got one too. And she
Yeah.
actually knew about them. And
Yeah.
she was like, "Oh, Rachel, I'm so excited. I'm going to write a reader's guide for one audiobooks for Anne of Green Gables." And I was like, wait, are they real?
Yeah. Yes.
I kind of deleted that email. Let me go back into my trash and find it.
Right.
That's great.
Wonderful.
So apparently their acquisitions editor had read a couple of my books and just liked them. And
You got to choose Jane Eyre, though?
I got to choose Jane Eyre. They had a list of classics they wanted to do, and Jane Eyre was not one of them.
Oh.
And I said, there were several George MacDonald books that I had never read. And there were like The Secret Garden and a few other things. And I was like, well, I could do The Secret Garden, or I could do A Little Princess. I've read those many times.
Yeah.
Anne of Green Gables already belonged to Carrie. But I was like, could I do Jane Eyre? Because I've read this a million times. This is my favorite novel. It's so meaty. And there's the Christian, like if you read it as a Christian, you understand it. Especially Mr. Rochester's arc, where he finally comes to repent, and he finally understands his great sins, and he repents, and he actually like commits to changing, and he changes. And in the book, he says it's not change from within himself. Like he couldn't do this, and he repents. He commits to changing. He does, and it's after that there's like this little miracle that happens. And it's after, at the same time, Jane realizes, I can't do what I think I need to do on my own. And she prays, like, God, help me, give me the strength to do this. And that's when the miracle happens on her end. And but if you're not a Christian, and you don't believe in forgiveness, and you don't believe in repentance, and you don't believe people can be changed by God and truly turn their lives around, the whole story doesn't work, and it's just toxic.
Right. Yeah.
And so I kind of convinced them, this is really good, a good book that would be good for your series, they were originally thinking like middle grade and lower. And I was like, but high schoolers need this too. You can't,
Right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes. So kind of talked them into it. And last spring spent a month and a half, I think, kind of putting all of my thoughts onto paper and then shaving my thoughts down, because I wrote about 20,000 words about it and had to make it down to 10,000. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that released a week ago tomorrow.
Wow. Congratulations.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I love the narrator. The narrator, I did not get any say in the narrator for that one.
Okay.
She sounds like a young Julie Andrews.
Oh, nice.
That Mary Poppins, very correct, beautiful voice and British accent. I got chills the first time I started to listen to it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That experience of, wow, I wrote that, but man, she makes me sound good.
Very, very weird. The first chapter or so that I listened to, because I'm like, I hear my thoughts in my head. That's how thinking works.
Right.
Yeah.
I hear my thoughts. So I hear my thoughts in my inner voice, or if I want to, I can hear my thoughts in somebody else's voice. I can just listen to, John Wayne or Julie Andrews or whoever, if I want to.
Wow.
But I have never before heard my thoughts and words in someone else's voice that I didn't choose.
Right.
To make up. And it's like, this is very strange.
Yeah.
But I got used to it, and
Awesome.
it's very cool.
Okay, and then that's just an audiobook form.
That is only an audiobook right now.
Okay.
If you are interested in, especially if anybody listening is like a homeschooler or a parent who wishes that it was also an ebook, tell One Audiobooks. Because I keep telling them, homeschoolers in particular are going to want this as something they can visually access, read through. They're thinking about doing the series as ebooks too, but I want people who are not me, people who are actually going to buy these things, to tell them we want this as an ebook.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So you are a homeschool mom, right?
I am a homeschool mom. I'm a second generation homeschooler. I was homeschooled K-12 and and my husband was homeschooled for high school. So
awesome. And then you have kids that you're homeschooling.
And we have 3 kids right now that we're homeschooling.
Awesome.
Which
so
I started when they were born. So my oldest just finished 10th grade. So.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful. So there is hope. We're still in the trenches. So.
I was homeschooled 4th up. So
okay. Yeah.
But I somehow survived public school. So I don't know how. But
it's not the worst thing ever.
Right.
It doesn't make you a bad person.
No, we're loving homeschooling. It's been so wonderful. And then they can read, anything they want. So were they your beta readers for the Jane Eyre? Yeah.
They're my beta readers for everything.
Everything.
Well, I would maybe not beta readers. They're my SETA. What's the next one? SETA readers, because part of the editing and revising process for me is when I get it to where I think this is good. This is basically ready. I read the whole book out loud. Yeah. Because you catch so many typos, you catch so many word repetitions that you just glossed over. You catch what is clunky. Whoa, this looked so nice on the page, but when you try to say it, it doesn't. No, it
doesn't work.
And so I read them out loud, and my kids listen to them, and then they will sometimes give me a little feedback of, "Mom, that sounds dumb," or "Why did they say that?" And then they're getting old enough. They're very good proofreaders. So the last couple books they have actually proofread for me as well. And they will catch things that my adult proofreaders sometimes kind of miss.
That's great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
There you go.
And it counts.
I pay them by giving them each a copy of the book when it comes out.
Exactly. Oh, it all counts as homeschooling.
That's right.
It's all
it's good hands-on practice, right?
Absolutely. Which that's the other thing I love about these books in particular that I noticed is I love your voices. So I can hear them speaking. They sound Western, right? From the moment they open their mouth. This is definitely they're Western, but not because of a drawl or a dialect or a twang or anything, right? It's just your word choice.
Yes.
And the order, right, of how they say things. I'm immediately like, oh yeah, Clint Eastwood, totally. That's where we're at.
Yeah, yes. I try very hard not to do dialects. Like in particular, I have an author's note at the beginning of One Bad Apple. letting people know, like I consulted some sensitivity readers, and that I did not try to write a dialect, because I've got characters from, the deep South, the mid South, Black characters who were born in free states and are, they're not going to have a Southern accent. They're going to all have a different dialect, and I'm never going to nail that. And it's just going to be dumb. Yeah. So I'm not even going to try. You can fill in whatever accents you feel like would be appropriate as you read it, but
exactly,
they're going to just talk like people talk.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to go the Huckleberry Finn route of, you're going to spend 5 minutes staring at this page trying to figure out what people are saying.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So to get that kind of voice down, do you read a lot of Westerns or watch a lot of Westerns that kind of informed that, or where did that come from?
I watch a lot of Westerns.
Yeah.
Movies really are my first love. I write books because I can't just make movies.
Make a movie, yeah.
Any particular favorites?
Yeah.
Pardon?
Any particular favorites?
Yeah. What's your go-to?
Yes, many particular favorites. Well, my favorite actor is John Wayne, and has been since I was like 12, who obviously made a lot of Westerns. I was born in Iowa, by the way. That's very nifty for me. And I also love Alan Ladd. He's my second favorite, and he also made quite a few Westerns. But favorite Western movies would start with The Man from Snowy River, which is actually an Australian Western.
Yes.
And I saw that in the theater when I was 2.
Oh, wow.
And I have been obsessed with it ever since. It's been my favorite movie ever since, because it is my favorite movie.
Yeah.
But I do really, really love it. And I love The Sons of Katie Elder, which is a John Wayne. I think The Magnificent Seven is the best Western ever made.
Yeah.
The original 1961. I love the Alan Ladd movies, Branded and Whispering Smith. Those are both fantastic. And The Proud Rebel. That's another really good one of his Westerns, which has some good found family elements to it, and just it's quiet, but it's so good. Shane, obviously, Shane is awesome. 310 to Yuma, the original 310 to Yuma is fabulous. Right here, if I can get my finger to work, that's a picture from the 2013 Lone Ranger movie from Disney, which is widely reviled, but I happen to absolutely love. It's in my top 5.
Awesome.
Just strange movie. I don't recommend watching it with children, particularly.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very odd. And it's just, sometimes you're watching it, you're like, what? Wow.
Yes.
Why did they do that? But I mean, it is Johnny Depp, so
yes,
right, true. So.
But
does Victor make an appearance in that?
Pardon?
Does Victor make an appearance in that?
Who's Victor?
The Lone Ranger's nephew's horse.
Maybe. Yeah, it is a strange movie, but I really, really love it. My best friend and I, we see ourselves like, I'm very much like John Reed in that movie, and she is very much like Tonto. And so like, that's our movie because it's us. So
Awesome. Okay, so we only have 10 minutes left, but I did want to touch on your newest thing that you announced. Today, we had a cover reveal and everything. Gorgeous cover.
This year is going to kill me. I did not intend to have 4 things come out in 1 year. It's insane.
Yeah.
But it's okay. 5 things, kind of. It's fine. I'll survive. Yes, the new thing is A Noble Companion. I'm writing a book in a multi-author series, the Cornerstone series. And this comes out November 12th.
Okay.
One assumes. And it's an ugly duckling retelling.
Okay.
But with the reason it's the Cornerstone series is because it's not focused on the usual like main character. Like the main character of the ugly duckling would be the ugly duckling, right?
Right.
It's going to focus on a side character, which was a challenge for Ugly Duckling because there are no other characters.
Right.
But he grows up in this family, right, of ducklings, and he's like adopted by them, and he has, other barnyard animals that he grows up around too. So my take on it is that he has a very handsome brother, and he has a childhood sweetheart that he grew up with, and she's the sweetheart. She's the main character, and it's about her and the brother off on a treasure hunt adventure. Okay. And the whole series is non-magical fantasy.
Okay.
And I don't really write fantasy, but I made it work.
Yeah.
I created a world which is basically early 1800s Spanish California. So like
Ooh,
the
okay.
world of Zorro,
Okay.
but with talking animals and dragons.
Interesting.
Ooh, okay.
So I get to do all the historical research I want to do, but then I make the animals talk.
Right.
So,
Exactly. Yeah, and then play with it.
yes,
Right.
and I play with it. So,
So,
yep,
so
so that-
are the books in this series? Are they read them in any order, or
yes,
do they?
they're not in any way connected. Aside from the fact that they are, all telling fairy tales from a slightly different angle. And
Okay.
yes, so everyone is by a different author. You can read them in any order. Mine is the 6th book that comes out. They do kind of have like the first 4 books are sort of spring stories. The next 4, which is what mine is part of, they're summer stories. Then the 4 after that are fall. And then the last 4 are kind of winter.
Nice.
But
Okay. So 4 times 4 is 16. So 16 books total.
16 books total, 16 different authors.
And different fairy tale. Each one's a different fairy
Each one's
tale.
a different fairy tale.
Wow.
Some of them are kind of obscure fairy tales.
Okay.
I had never even heard of. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, some of them are your very basic, like Cinderella and things like that. But there's I've never heard of the fairy tale Hans Who Made the Princess Laugh.
No, yeah. Are these all Grimm fairy tales? I say
not all Grimm, because the Ugly Duckling is Hans Christian Andersen.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But they're all fairy tales.
Okay.
That one I think is Grimm. I think I looked that one up because I was like, I've never heard of that.
No,
but it's a cool fairy tale. Once I looked it up, I was like, oh, lucky person who chose that one.
Right. So did you get to choose the Ugly Duckling? Or
yes, they had. I think Abigail K. Harris is kind of heading it up, and she has a small press called Beyond the Bookery, and that's where they're getting published through. And she chose, I think, like 20 different fairy tales for people to choose from, and you got to choose. So by the time I came on board, there were like 10 left to choose from. And I thought that I was going to choose. Actually, one of them is the Nutcracker, and I was like, oh, that would be fun. That the original Nutcracker is like German. I could do something Germanic with that. I would do that. Somebody else picked it before I could say. No. So I was like, okay, what else could I do? I could do the Ugly Duckling. I'm sure I could do something with that. I don't know what, but give me that one. So
that sounds wonderful. Well, and I love how all the covers are similar but different, right?
Yes.
They're all a noble something, right?
Right. They all have a noble something. And we did get to choose our title.
Okay.
So I got to choose that.
Okay.
And they do all have like a beautiful girl of some sort with a beautiful dress, and then like this kind of border thing around it.
Yeah.
Some of them are facing mine is, I think, maybe the only one that's facing totally away. Some of them are kind of sideways profiles. Some of them are facing the reader, but
yeah, they're gorgeous.
They're really cool.
Are they releasing like one a week or in groups?
So the covers are being revealed 4 at a time. So we did 4 last Monday, 4 today, 4 next Monday, 4 the Monday after that. But the books will be released 1 a week starting in early October, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And those will be available in all formats or just an ebook?
Those will be ebook and paperback. Ebook and paperbacks. Mm-hmm. It's almost midnight here. Huh?
You're doing great.
Some people are also putting them in hardcover. But I'm not putting mine in hardcover because I have never done a hardcover, and I am too many books releasing this year to fiddle with a new thing.
Doing layout. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. Congratulations on being part of that.
Yeah. Thanks. It's very exciting, and it's a lot of fun. We authors have like an online chat group that we bounce ideas off each other and stuff. So that's been
fun. And are those Christian fiction like your other books?
They are all Christian authors. There'll be varying levels of Christianity, obviously, because they're fantasy, but they are going to be like like Narnia kind of. Like there will be Christian overtones or from a Christian worldview.
Sure.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's always going to leak through.
So, yes.
Yep.
As it should.
As it should. Absolutely. Yeah. So let's see. So in the last 5 minutes, I guess, with your faith. So faith is a cornerstone, of course, for you as an author. Do you have any words of advice to other Christian authors specifically, seeking to write, publish, all that?
You're never going to please everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I have had reviews of my books where readers say, why is this Christian fiction? This isn't Christian fiction. I don't see why it was labeled that way. And I've had reviews say there was too much God stuff in this book. I didn't like it how they talked about God all the time. That's the same book.
Right. Yeah.
So, what is way too much God stuff for one person is going to be, I didn't see anything Christian in this. Sure, they went to church and they prayed and they read the Bible and they talked about God, but that doesn't make it Christian fiction. Whatever my particular definition of it is, it didn't meet my criterion.
Yeah.
So you write what God gives you to write.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which for me is books about Christians encountering things in life, and do they get all their answers from on high? No. Do they get everything from on high? Yes. Right. Like every blessing comes from God, whether he directly, sends someone into your life to say, here's how we're going to fix this, or whether he gives you a job and you work at that and you earn the money that puts the food on the table. That's still a gift from God. So that's my particular brand of Christian fiction. But
good advice.
I love that. Absolutely. And I feel like, like you said, I saw Christian themes in all of it, but I'm a Christian. So I see that.
Right. And, so many books that we think of as just classic books, like today, would Jane Eyre be called Christian fiction? Because it's constantly through the whole thing. She's talking about, I was told this, and this was read to us in church, and this was in, we had to study these things in school, and it's all through there. But we don't call it Christian fiction now. We just call it a classic book. Jane Austen's books too. Her characters go to church. Her characters pray. They read. They pray together as a family. They, they live out their Christian lives, and they do sometimes say, how am I going to solve this? Well, the Bible says this. That's what we'll do. But we don't label them that way.
Exactly. Anne of Green Gables, Little Women, almost all the classics.
So many.
C.S. Lewis and Tolkien.
Well, yes, of course.
Yes, definitely. Tolkien, who managed to write the most Roman Catholic book ever without any mention of without any mention of God in it, and yet it's everywhere.
Is exactly. The themes are absolutely in there, and just that's wonderful. Good advice. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Did you have any other?
No, I think I covered everything.
Question. I know. I think
we got it without even looking at our notes.
Without even looking, it was so natural. It was wonderful. Thank you so much, Rachel, for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, yes. And thank you everybody who joined us live and everyone who's watching this on the replay. Thank you so much. Be sure to check out Rachel's books. So I've got a link below to her website. Follow her on social media. Any place else that?
Follow me on social media. I have an author newsletter. There's links to that on my website, and my Instagram has, a link tree with links to all that stuff. If you sign up for my newsletter, you do get an opportunity to download a free copy of The Man on the Buckskin Horse as an ebook, but without the illustrations.
Right.
Those aren't free. I am still paying the artist for those.
So please support Rachel so she can get more pictures.
Yes.
Oh man, yeah. I have so many more things I want to talk to you about. Okay.
Well, we'll do this again when I release another book.
Exactly. So in a month, we'll do this again.
Don't remind me. Not a month. 2 months. I cannot take another book release just yet.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us next week.
Next week we have K.E. Andrews on, the author of Hills of Heather and Bone.
Yes.
And you can click your notification bell right now by going to the next live on your channel.
Yes. And if you missed any of our past episodes, there's a whole playlist with all the back list of all those wonderful conversations. So we've been having fun. So thank you again for joining us, Rachel. And thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful rest of your week.
Yeah.
As my kids would say, bye.
Auf Wiedersehen.